Hi everyone, my name is Laura Ellis and welcome to OpsWAT's webinar on providing Zero Trust Secure Access for work from home. We are also more than happy to schedule a follow-up session for any of you interested in learning more. And let's start with learning a little bit about OPSWAT. OPSWAT is a cybersecurity company that is headquartered in San Francisco with 9 locations around the world. We were founded in 2002 and have been focused on protecting businesses' security since that time. Long before Zero Trust became the buzzword that you hear so often today, it has been OPSWAT's philosophy to design solutions that trust no file and trust no device. These solutions are protecting some of the world's most critical infrastructure today, including 98% of the US nuclear power plants. We have over 1,500 customers leveraging these solutions, and we also have over 2,000 certified professionals who have taken advantage of the OpsWat Academy for cybersecurity professionals, something we just launched about a quarter ago and is catching on. We'll talk more about this later. First, introductions. I've already introduced myself as Laura Ellis. I am the VP of Sales for Secure Access at OpsWat with well over 20 years in the world of IT, networking, and security, and I'm happy to host this session today. We also have Amir Gill on the line. Amir?
Hello, this is Amir Gill. I'm the Meta Access Business Director. I have more than 25 years in the business-to-business session, and I manage the sales and business of Meta Access. Today, I will demonstrate how we actually deploy the Trust No Device with integration with other applications. Russ?
Hello, Russ Miller here, VP of Products for the Secure Access business with OPSWAT. 20 plus years of experience with software development, much of it focused on cybersecurity and networking. And now I'll introduce Michael. Michael?
Hello, my name is Michael Wheeler, and I am an SE with OpsWat.
Thank you, everyone. And now let's move forward to our agenda. And the main topic, of course, is preparing to work from home. So we'll introduce this topic, and I'm sure most of us on this call are either already working from home or are starting this process in some way. OPSWAT certainly is, with many or most of our employees working from home, including most of us on the call today. The technologies we are going to discuss today are, of course, in place at our company, and we are fully secure and fully operational. We'll be discussing secure remote device access to ensure your endpoint is secure, and secure remote network access to ensure that you control who gets on your network. We'll give you a short live demo of both of these aspects and then get into details such as licensing and support. And last, we will open up for further Q&A, but once again, I do want to encourage you to ask throughout this webinar. So in preparing to work from home, an organization has much to consider. It is certainly a challenge. You need to ensure that your employees have the right equipment, resources, and bandwidth to be successful, but you also need to have tools in place to ensure the collaboration that's so necessary for productivity continues remotely. You can use things such as chat and webinar tools like we're using today. The human aspect is also very important to cover. Last, certainly not least, and our focus for the rest of the time today, is ensuring that you are enabling a secure environment. It's incredibly difficult for all of us at work and at home dealing with this pandemic of the coronavirus, and now we also need to worry about the rise and increase in computer viruses as well. So here's my first question for the Q&A panel. How many of you have already implemented a work from home program, and where are you in this process? If you could please provide an answer in the Q&A, that will help us all learn collectively where we are in this journey and how it's going. I would appreciate that. So while you're doing that, I am going to continue and talk to you about some of the work from home secure access concerns. I'm sure you already know that hackers are very aware that this necessity to work from home is an opportunity for them, making an increase in cyber attacks. and we're already hearing much of this. The Department of Homeland Security has issued an alert specific to work from home attacks and the need to heighten security in this environment. This alert outlines the important security risks in the environment and possible mitigations you may take. So as you can see, this is an active link in the presentation, and I encourage you to check that out, as well as a recent CSO Online article. It makes for a good read and highlights some of the ways these attacks are starting to take shape. There are many reported breaches in these past 2 months. I've heard of phishing incidents where a link looks like the Johns Hopkins Daily Coronavirus Report. That's a link that I use every day. And as well as coronavirus health tips. They're getting very creative in being able to capture people to do that. Other examples include malware housed in application downloads and bad domains and insecure endpoints. What does make working from home so much more vulnerable? There's many reasons, and I'm sure most of you are familiar with a lot of these examples. We may be opening up applications for remote access that we haven't done before, that we've always kept inside the company. We are reliant upon VPNs, which, while designed to provide more security, are exposed on the network and are vulnerable to attacks. We often don't have visibility to everything that is accessing your network or your cloud applications. I would say that I talk to very few organizations that truly can say they know everything that's connected to their network. So it's a challenge for all of us, and we're all at risk. We are aware that we do need a new approach. So let's discuss how OpsWat has some approaches that can help in this environment. We'll be sharing with you a couple of solutions that address these issues in a manner that can be implemented very quickly, which is critical. Meta Access is a solution which ensures that you have a trusted endpoint for cloud access, and then SafeConnect Software-Defined Perimeter provides zero trust remote and secure cloud access. With these solutions, you will have endpoint security checked before connecting to the network and secure Wi-Fi connection, as well as if you're using virtual desktop or VDI, we can secure that environment as well. We'll have the ability to limit application exposure, both by user and by role, so that you're fully following least privileged principles. And we're giving you visibility to what's connecting to your network. We're giving you that visibility you need and ensuring compliance based upon your organization's policies and regulations. And with this, I'll turn it over to Amir to dive more into details on Meta Access.
Okay, thank you, Laura. So the situation we are all experiencing is working from home. We have our laptop there or desktop. It can be a Windows or a Mac, and maybe also bring your own device or cellular or a tablet. And we're actually trying to connect and work on applications that can be on the cloud, like Salesforce, Office 365, or Amazon. And we need to make sure that we check also the device, the laptop or the home desktop, for compliance. And this is basically the role of Meta Access. The OPSWAT client will be installed on the endpoint. It will do continuous check of the compliance to the policy of the organization. And when you're trying to connect to a cloud application, then we will check this posture and allow or not allow to connect. The same goes if we try to connect to an application that is in our network in the organization. Then, of course, we will say yes or no to the VPN. We have APIs both to VPNs when it comes to connecting to a remote application in the organization. And we have connections to SAML with IDPs when it comes to connecting to cloud applications. Next slide, please, Laura. So what do we provide with Meta Access? Meta Access will check a compliance to your policy. That means we make sure that, for example, the antivirus is really installed, it's really running, it's really updated to the latest threats. We can ensure that devices are encrypted according to the policy, that the password is correct, And of course, we can make sure that the patches are updated and also remove and update software. We also have security capabilities. That means we can use Meta Defender with many engines. Laura, can you hit? Yeah, thank you. We can detect malware infection using multiple anti-malware engines. With our Meta Defender, we have the capability to do multi-scanning with many engines and reports the threats. We can also block portable media that is connected to your computer. Apart from that, we also can scan for vulnerabilities. We are connected to cv.org for common vulnerabilities and exposures. And we have our own scoring that is based on over 100 million endpoints that are scanned with Oasis technology, which is the base of Meta Access. And of course, we can be connected to other access control tools. Okay, we connect with SAML to IDPs. We can integrate with NAC solution, our own or other NAC solutions to block the endpoint, and Active Directory as well as Azure Active Directory. Next slide, please, Laura. Okay. The first use case we're talking about is VMware, the integration with VMware. VMware has a platform called Unified Access Gateway and Horizon Client that will be installed on the endpoint as a VDI that will allow you to work on your environment on a special desktop with your applications of the organization. We are securing the device. That means, first of all, we're doing the posture check all the time, reporting to Meta Access Cloud. Then, when you're trying to connect to UAG, UAG will ask in the third step that will ask Meta Access if this endpoint is really compliant. Is it allowed to connect to the Horizon client? If the answer is yes, it will connect to the VDI, to the Horizon client, and you can work on your application. Next slide, please. So this is a use case from this month, earlier in March. A bank in Luxembourg with this infrastructure, with VMware UAG and Horizon Client, required to work from home with 500 users. So the implementation method was they registered freely with free account with 50 users. Anybody can do that through OpsWatup site. And they started a POC by themselves with no assistance from us. They only contacted us when they really wanted to integrate it with VMware UAG. So we sent them the document, that's all. They did the rest alone. And from the first engagement, testing, integrating it together, fetching the license and going live, everything took less than a week, just 1 week. Next slide, please, Laura. The other way to integrate Meta Access with service providers of all kinds, cloud solutions, is through IDPs or directly to the service provider using SAML. SAML is the XML of the single sign-on, and this is a standard API for us. So the workflow will be that the user will try to log in to any application like Office 365 or Salesforce or any other cloud application. The service provider will basically connect to the IDP, and the IDP will connect Meta Access to check the device compliance. In this case, we can have two options. One can be a persistent agent that is in the endpoint all the time, checking the compliance continuously. In this case, we just check the posture and reply to the IDP if it's allowed to get to the service provider. Another option is if there is no agent on the endpoint, we can install an on-demand agent immediately, make a quick compliance check, and reply to the IDP if it's allowed or not allowed. Next slide, please. In the case the device is not compliant to the policy of the organization, the user experience will be like that. You will get a web page saying the device is at risk. And we will include in it exactly what is wrong. First of all, the main issue here is just one issue. None of your anti-malware products are configured correctly. And then we will guide him what went wrong, why does it matter, and how to fix it. So in this case, it's a Windows Defender that was not doing any scan recently. Why does it matter and how to fix it? The meaning of how to fix it is to make sure that the user can solve the issue by himself as much as we can, so we won't load too much the IT people. Michael Wheeler will demo a bit later how it works and show you other issues that can rise in this kind of check. Next slide, please. So this is another case study from a large international European bank. They're using Meta Access in the last 3 years for about 22,000 users, and it provides them the ability to work remotely for their employees, for third party, for contractors. And this March, they approached us again earlier this month because they have to move 50% of their employees to work from home. And they actually basically ask us to increase the licensing. Since this is a cloud application, the enablement of additional licenses is immediate, and they are now working with almost 50,000 employees that are secured by Meta Access. If you have any questions about the application, please put it in the Q&A. And in this time, I would like to clear the floor to Michael Wheeler, our sales engineer, that will do a live demo. Michael, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Amir. So what we have here is what we're pretending is our end user's computer. So in the case of BYOD, this is going to be their computer that they have at home, and they're going to be accessing their organization's VMware VDI infrastructure. So we have the VMware Horizon client, and we're going to launch that, and we're going to attempt to do some work. So when you launch the VMware client, you have a UAG, or Unified Access Gateway, that you select as the one that you want to use. So this is my UAG, and I'm going to authenticate to it. And once I'm authenticated, I am presented with a virtual desktop pool from which my VM will be available. So if I click on that, I am actually presented with a message that says your client does not comply with the service access policy. So what that means is I tried to connect to the VMware infrastructure, and UAG, the Unified Access Gateway from VMware, was able to assess my policy and determine that I was not compliant with that policy, and it decided that I should not get access. So we can also prop up, as you were seeing earlier when Amir was showing his slides, we have a remediation page that we can pop up for this as well. So this gives the general information, devices at risk, and again, those 3 pieces of information: what went wrong, why does it matter, and how do I fix it? And this page can also be branded to your company's logo so it looks more legitimate to your customers as well. So let's take a look from the administrator's point of view of what happened here. So as the user, I know that I was not compliant with the policy and why. So obviously, the best step would be for the user to remediate their issue. In this case, Windows updates need to be installed. But for the purposes of the demo, so everyone doesn't have to sit and watch me install Windows updates, we'll take a look at the policy and see how the policy could be modified to allow this computer to be compliant. So here I have my patch management check. And this patch management check is checking that there are not any reported missing patches with a particular criticality as defined by Microsoft. And those patches are more than X amount of days out of date. In this case, it's 1. So for the purposes of the demo, I'm going to modify the policy to not make missing patches a critical issue. So I modify my policy, I click Save. From the user's point of view, we would go back into the Horizon client, we would go back and select our UAG and authenticate just like normal. And we still have, again, we have our virtual desktop pool. And when we double click on that, we can see that we now do have access and we're getting further along in the process. And then we can see that we are thrown into our virtual desktop and it will log in and allow me to do my work just like I normally could. So you can see how easy it is for the user to get into their VDI infrastructure as long as their computer is compliant. So that shows the VMware use case. Now we're going to take a look at the SAML integration, and in this demo, we'll take a look at Centrify. So here we have the Centrify login screen, and I am attempting to access a resource via Centrify. And again, this uses the exact same meta access policy that we were talking about earlier. It can be configured for a single policy that controls access to all of your applications, including web-based applications with SAML or SSO, as well as applications like VMware VDI or popular VPNs. So I'm going to attempt my login process here. And I'm prompted for my password. And as soon as I attempt to log in, we'll see if I get in. Nope, it looks like I am not compliant with the policy. So again, we see that familiar remediation page presented back to the user. And it looks like I have currently 2 issues that need to be resolved. One of those is that my device has not been backed up recently. So again, we have our 3 key pieces of information: what went wrong, why does it matter, and how do I fix it? And my second issue is that I do not have BitLocker enabled on this machine. So again, the best course of action for security is to remediate these issues and make the machine compliant with the policy. But again, for purposes of the demo, we'll take a look at another way that we can allow devices in. So from the management console, I can view a list of all of the devices that are registered with my account. And I'm going to search for my particular account or my particular device, and we can see that this red X means that I am not compliant. Now, one of the things that I can do is, in addition to actually modifying the policy like we did in the last demo, what we're going to do is actually exempt this machine from the policy. And this exemption can be done on a time limit basis, so an hour, 8 hours, 24 hours, or unlimited. So we'll just choose to exempt this machine from the policy for 1 hour. And we can see that that red X changed to a yellow check mark. So I'm not compliant with the policy, and if we mouse over, we can see that it says I'm exempted. So at this point, we're going to attempt to log in again via Centrify to our SSO application, and in this case, Salesforce. And we can see that now that I'm exempted from the policy, I am able to get in and I'm able to do my work like normal. Now, again, in real world circumstances, we would expect the user to remediate the actual issue, but we can see that we can also do it this way. So we can also revoke an exemption. So we can unexempt the machine, and then we would go back to a non-compliant state. So I hope that shows you how you can integrate meta access with not only SAML-based web applications, but also VDI applications or use cases with VMware. So back to you.
Thank you. Laura, can we see that? Oh, yeah. Thank you. Go back to,
1 second, please.
yep.
Can't. Do you all see the screen?
Not yet.
Okay, hang on 1 minute. I'm gonna need to find out why I can't share the screen.
Here it goes. Good. Okay. So next slide, please. Great. Just to summarize, meta access capabilities to do compliance on the endpoint is backed up by OPSWAT Oasis access control technology. That is the core technology within meta access. It is a technology that is OEM'd in many well-known security products that you're aware of: Cisco AnyConnect, F5, Palo Alto, and with them we scan more than 100 million devices worldwide. So, and apart from that, we have technology cooperation with over 150 vendors of security products that you can see here on the screen. We have a very close relationship with them. We have their signatures, we have their new releases, and that enables us very quick response and capabilities to explore new threats on the endpoints. So if you have more questions, I saw you already have a lot of questions and we are not answering them during this session. Please don't hesitate, send us the question and we'll reply. Now let's go on. Laura, Russ, let's go with SDP.
Great. Thanks, Amir. So I think it'd be good for us to start with, first, thanks for joining, but next, a question to you all that you could answer for us, please, if you could, in the Zoom area there. I'd be curious to hear how many of you have exposure to software-defined perimeter at any level, even conceptually previously, and perhaps you could share sort of where you heard about it or what sort of level of exposure you do have. And going into this, it does seem important to sort of separate out the prior conversations we've just had. So you've seen two ways to help protect users working from home. The first was with the VMware UAG and the VDI sort of approach, and then the SAML approach that Meta Access offers. And we're really shifting to a third different way to control that access and protect users. And it's more at a network level, more along the lines of a next generation VPN, which is what the software-defined perimeter is. And, you know, so to help you out and to have this discussion about how we do protect work from home, let's talk about how the software-defined perimeter does provide control. So here in front of you, you see the traditional sort of approach. We have a client sitting outside the perimeter firewall. We have applications being accessed within the perimeter. The three that are in blue there representing what the user is supposed to have access to, but with the VPN, they obviously have much broader access and can go access things, perhaps if they phish credentials or otherwise started to move laterally inside the network, get access to items they shouldn't. So in terms of deploying, you know, so this is number one, you see the one there. The second one is if we started to deploy, so hopefully you see that in the bottom right of the image there, bottom corner, the access gateway is now in place of the VPN. So this is the SDP access gateway. It is a deny-all firewall that is sort of a dynamic firewall that is going to only allow a connection and do it in a very controlled and granular fashion. And meanwhile, keeping what is exposed on the public internet very secure because it is in that denial state. So it's darkened. If you tried to probe it with Nmap or the like, it wouldn't respond. Meanwhile, it's protecting those applications sitting behind it. Next. So in the third step here, in terms of understanding the software-defined perimeter, the top portion now of the image is filled in, the connection from the access gateway up to the controller. So there's no inbound communication to the gateway. It's calling up to that trust broker or controller, which is for us deployed in the cloud in AWS. That trust broker is going to be the portion of this architecture that helps enforce policies. So as a user is attempting to access, it's going to be the trust broker that's evaluating the policy, talking to an identity access management system to check for authentication and authorization, leveraging PKI infrastructure that we provide within the solution to provide secure certificates to help with the encryption. Next. And here we see number 4 filling in is the communication. So as the client or user attempts to access an application, the conversation doesn't go first So this is the least privilege and sort of flipping things around that the software-defined perimeter does. Instead of talking to the access gateway, it talks first to the trust broker or controller, gets the permission. The client is then given the certificates, given the keys that it can use to encrypt what we call an SPA, or a single packet authentication, which is going to be the way that it gets the access to the gateway and opens up the gateway to be able to do the communication. So in step 5, we'll see that the communication, it's a secure tunnel, a mutually authenticated TLS tunnel is established between the client and the gateway, and that user, using an installed client that I will show you in a few minutes in part of a demo, will be able to see the list of applications they have access to, and then and only then be able to open a network connection to access the applications behind the gateway. Next. So now that we understand how the software-defined perimeter does its controlling, how it enforces and limits access, let's circle back to the points Laura brought up earlier in terms of, what is it we're doing different in work from home that the software-defined perimeter can help with. So we talked about exposing additional applications. So with the software-defined perimeter, you can safely expose those applications because they're going to be very controlled and very tightly limited in terms of who can get that network access. They can't, when they're untrusted, they can't even see it. It also, because it's providing that denial firewall, it's protecting from lots of other types of attacks, like a denial of service attack. And again, the communication, so in terms of them maybe using an insecure Wi-Fi, they're coming through a mutually authenticated TLS tunnel, and that's the only way to access those applications. And so now with the users remote, often in the past, it's not like it's completely new. People have been working remotely as a growing trend, but obviously very abruptly we find far more of them doing it. But you need the same visibility and control that you have when they're on premise. And with a software-defined perimeter, you do get that. So that because the traffic is being taken through the tunnel and through the control of the software-defined perimeter, and talking to the trust broker first, you get visibility and the ability to leverage the meta access, which was being demonstrated earlier in terms of policies about having AV running or being compliant with disk encryption and the like before accessing applications. And that's a huge thing because, just because people are working from home out of, this unfortunate circumstances, you don't want to be opened up for fines for not being compliant. Meanwhile, the application policies can be consistent as well when they're local or remote, and users get the same experience, whether local or remote. And as I've already alluded to, the software-defined perimeter is really like a next-generation firewall, but it's been built from the ground up to be easier to deploy, more modern in terms of management with the integration to the identity management systems. So getting in, for example, automatically prompts for multi-factor authentication, leveraging your group and user information from the likes of Okta, Ping Identity, or Centrify. So ultimately much more secure than a typical VPN. But let's dive into that a little bit on the next slide. So, most of us have been using a VPN. They've served us very well over the years, but it's time to move beyond the traditional VPN. So, you can go search yourself and see that there are many VPN endpoints exposed on the public internet. Those publicly exposed connection points are open for pre-authentication attacks, whereas, so SDP prevents that by mutually authenticating before it allows that endpoint to be even exposed for attack. And then once you are connected, and you'll see this very, very vividly in the demo, it's only going to allow a very narrow sort of tunnel or access, whereas VPNs are very broad in terms of what they open up. And meanwhile, like we've also highlighted, leveraging the meta access policy capabilities, you can do deep compliance checks and deep security policy checks on the endpoints to ensure that they're secure and can be trusted. So an example use case that highlights work from home and sort of the impact of the coronavirus. We've been contacted by multiple customers, but one in particular that stands out is helping this particular university located in California within a day, going from what they had been trialing at proof of concept, went to, the word came down from the the provost that they needed to go and let students work from home and staff work from home and faculty work from home. And within a day, we were able to take them from that POC to deployed and have the staff be able to operate the university remotely so that they could support the remote learning that was happening. So this just a case in point of exactly what we're all facing here. Next. I think we're going to the demo. So I will take control here. Okay, so you all, Lori, they see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so here's the entry point. So the software-defined perimeter solution from OpsWatup is available for registration. It is a SaaS-based application. You can go register for it. I encourage you to do it. You know, so you go to sdp.impulse.com. So we were just recently acquired by OpsWatup, so that's the Impulse. But here's what you'll see once you do register. So I've already created an account. I went through the email confirmation. I've logged in, and there's a wizard that walks you through. And the first step is to configure which applications you're going to protect. That's what it's all about. You know, and applications in this case can also be resources like network segments. The users that are going to access the applications, and then the policies are going to control when and how those users are allowed to connect to those applications. And then ultimately there is a client. I'm going to show you that in a few minutes. So in terms of applications, we divide the applications into two sets, web or other. Web obviously being just what, you know, typical web applications, you know, example here, we're a development shop, so I've got Jira installed. We use that a lot. But also remoting into appliances or servers. So using SSH or remote desktop, or even just a network segment. These would be example of others. So particularly for legacy applications like, you know, maybe even Windows File Share or older two-tier applications, very important to provide network level protection, and that's where SDP really shines. So just for example, here you can see that we can do very wide sort of grants of privilege, you know, once you're connected, like a VPN. So here's a whole CIDR range, a subnet with all of the ports, or we can go down to specific IP addresses and just specific ports. So again, that's where the big difference between a traditional VPN and the software-defined perimeter is this level of control that can be provided. And we can support the software-defined perimeter for any TCP/IP-based application. Okay, so we talked about the applications, now the users. So users can be configured either through SAML or through native local users. So here's the user I'm logged in as, you know, so just very easy to come in and configure users that are native, but you know, most of you would use your SAML provider, you know, whether it's Azure or whatever the case may be. And again, the advantage is that the multi-factor or, you know, whatever additional level of security that's being provided would be enforced here as well when the user comes to log in, layered on top of what we have. So here we have the policy. So as I mentioned, we have applications, users, and then policies that control when they can access those applications. And, you know, so for me, because I'm in this policy, I will be able to access Jira, you know, and so from the standpoint of when I don't have access, because it's providing a dark sort of, you know, denial stance from the public internet, if I just try to hit it without being connected, I would just not see it. I wouldn't find it. And even the DNS can be taken through that tunnel to, you know, make sure that the applications are secure and safe. So now I'm going to switch and show you the actual client application. So the client application lives in the tray most of the time. You're going to see it a little bigger here because I'm just sharing that application specifically. It's much narrower and smaller than you're probably seeing. But most of the time the user isn't interacting with this. It sits in the tray. They can use their system the way they normally do. And, you know, but once they're connected, they are able to, you know, click from here if they decided to and launch and see applications. And I've just done it, but I'll have to switch to another window to show you in a second. Meanwhile, before I do that, I'm going to just show you that, in terms of logging in and using the SAML connectivity, you either get the choice to log in with native credentials, or if a user is configured with one of the IDPs that we were talking about, they would just come in and click on their IDP, probably only have one choice for most of you, and then be taken directly into the application or prompted for the multi-factor authentication before they get connected. And I will shift back now to the other browser window to finish the conversation. So, just to make the point, once I'm connected and I do load the URL, it will bring up the application will load, and I'm allowed then to connect on. Yeah, so in summary, just to kind of touch on some of the points here of what we're providing. So we're providing for work from home safety, the deep security and compliance checks, as well as the encryption security. And we are helping you in terms of a better Wi-Fi sort of, if it's open Wi-Fi, we're securing that through the tunnel. And ultimately, we're making these applications not visible to the outside world by putting that deny-all firewall in place. And I see it did load finally there. But that's really the broad sort of picture. I'd certainly be welcome any of you to contact us to go through a SDP and a deeper dive sort of thing. There's a lot more to it in terms of some reporting that's built in. But right now, in terms of interest of time, I'll turn it back over to Laura.
So hello, and thank you, Russ. Thank you, Amir and Michael. Hopefully you have all gotten a good sense for some of the technologies that we can bring to bear to help you in very quickly moving over to a work from home type of environment. I do want to spend a few minutes now on details, important details, such as licensing, implementation, and ongoing support. The solutions that we've discussed today all have a very simple annual subscription model coming in packs of 50 devices. You can see you can start at 50 and go anywhere on up from there. So these are available to be downloaded on our OpsWat website, so you can go there, and we could also customize a proposal for you. And again, please reach out for that. There is documentation to help you get started, and full implementation can actually be accomplished in a matter of hours or days. We have one example of a bank that recently worked with us to get the software-defined perimeter installed, joined what they thought would be a kickoff call, and by the end of the hour, they were up and live. So this truly can be done quickly, and you heard some of the other references Amir and Russ shared today too. These are not long, complicated installs. You'll also have access to engineering support throughout your implementation. And of course, support is 24/7 with those email and phone support. We also have the ability to include upgrades and, in fact, to have automated updates so that you're always at the latest gold standard of these solutions. So no matter how easy we want to tell you a solution is, OpsWat recognizes that no solution is successful without the proper training, both for the users and for the cybersecurity professionals. And training has been in short supply. So with that, OpsWat announced the Academy about a quarter ago, and with 5 modules to share how to protect the critical infrastructure in your environment, training we all need, and then specifics on how to implement some of the solutions that we discussed today. So I've taken this Academy myself, and I've got to say I actually enjoyed them. They were not as dry as a lot of them are, with a good whiteboard technique to keep you engaged. They are no charge, and at the end of this course, at the end of the academy, you'll be certified in critical infrastructure protection. So please check it out. We've heard a lot today, and what we want to wrap up with is the OpsWat advantage. The fact that OpsWat's philosophy of trust no file and trust no device, along with this ability to provide zero trust network access, truly does give you total device security. And that's extremely important as we shift to these work from home. Certainly not just for the short time, as it's very possible we may have to keep these capabilities long into the future. So what we're showing here is an architecture diagram that shows you how meta access, along with FTP, can manage what is becoming more and more of a dynamic network perimeter. And with this architecture design, all of the vulnerabilities that we discussed at the beginning of this session are addressed, as you can see in this list here and as you've heard throughout this presentation. So we do want to help. We want to help you get started. We all need to come together in this time, and OpsWat will play our part in our area of expertise, which is security. So with this in mind, you can download these licenses at the link shown here with 50 licenses of both meta access and FTP at no charge. So we encourage you to try it out, and we encourage you to reach out to us for consultation on what works best for your organization, and we'll help you get this going. We do offer other solutions as well, so I just want to highlight that. We have 6 different solutions here. We've gone over a couple of them, and I call this the OpsWat 6-pack. We encourage you to head over to OpsWat.com and learn about the other solutions we have as well. We did just have a webinar on the file upload security solution a few days ago, so if you're interested in learning on that one, please make a note under the Q&A and we'll send you that replay along with the deck and this recording that we're sending of this one today. So we'll now open up for the Q&A.